Do you want to know the pros and cons of living in Virginia Beach in 2021? Well, that's what we're talking about today, and we're starting right now. Hey, my name is Sansalone, and I'm a real estate agent in the Virginia Beach area, and I do videos every week about living and moving into Virginia Beach. And I don't want you to miss any of them because I got so much stuff. I got little nitty-gritty details about living here, and it's from a local's perspective because I was born here and raised here, and I love it. But I don't always love it. Well, today we're talking about the pros and cons of living in Virginia Beach in 2021. I want to give you a true and real current assessment of what it's like to live here, the good stuff and the bad stuff, and also interspersed in those pros and cons, I'm going to give you also my top 5 favorite restaurants in Virginia Beach too. So we're first going to start with the cons and negatives first. So number 1, in no particular order, is the jet noise. I've mentioned this in a lot of my other videos in different ways, but the noise in a lot of parts of the area is anywhere from really annoying to extremely unbearable. How bad is it? Well, if I keep talking to you and we have a conversation, and the most important part is if you take every single piece of the pie, you cut it all into individual Now, this noise primarily comes from the Oceana Naval Air Station, which is on the eastern side of Virginia Beach, and depending on where you are in relation to the base and the runway, that will influence the noise you hear and how loud it is. So if you plan on moving to Virginia Beach and noise bothers you, please research and ask locals how loud it might get in that specific spot, because this could make a big difference between whether or not you want to live there or not. I'll drop a link below for the noise zone map, which will definitely help you too. Now for the first restaurant in my top 5, number 5 is the Noodle Man. My wife and I stumbled on this pho place a few months ago, and it's the best in the area. These guys make their own noodles, and you can watch them from behind the counter, like as you eat. You know, it's really cool. Good seasoning, love it. Best pho I've ever had, and I'll put the address below. Now the next con are the little pests that terrorize all of my outdoor fun. The mosquitoes. Literally the worst things. These things are everywhere around here. Like literally everywhere. I walk outside for 5 seconds and I start swatting at them. Basically the reason is because the humidity in the area is really high. So once the temperatures start going high enough, they just pounce like as soon as you walk outside. But depending on who you are, so some people often, they'll associate mosquitoes with the water and they think, well, if I'm not near the water, then it won't be as big of a deal. Well, the answer is no. I know people like an hour from the water who have tons of mosquitoes, and then we have them in our house, and we're 15 minutes from the water. They're everywhere. So I would venture to say that it'll be really hard to avoid them if you do come here and if they're attracted to you. But I've also found that being said that mosquitoes don't always like everyone. There are certain blood types that they like, was what I've read, and if you have like lactic acid buildup, and I've heard too that darker color clothes attracts them also. But I'm a type O blood type, and I think I'm almost positive that that's the most attractive blood type for them. So they just hit me right away. Like they crush me. But there are ways to avoid them. The biggest thing around here is a screened-in porch. Those are like the gold standard here. If you get a screened-in porch, we won't have any problems. So if you're looking to move here, if you try and find a house with a screened-in porch, you will do very, very well. Now on the subject of mosquitoes is a very important thing to do, which is to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. That tells YouTube I'm doing a great job, and I really appreciate your support. Now really the number 3 con is the flooding. A lot of people have talked to me about this aspect, and people have been concerned about moving to Virginia Beach because they think that because we're near the ocean, there's a lot of flooding issues. And the answer to this is a loaded one. It's not a real huge problem in Virginia Beach. Actually, other cities around Virginia Beach have bigger issues with it than Virginia Beach itself. But there are some specific spots, very, very, very localized areas that do have some issues that can come up in larger weather events. There are some spots in Virginia Beach that can flood, especially on the southeastern section near Back Bay over in the very southeastern corner, where there's some low-lying areas and you're also close to water. And depending on which direction the wind blows, the water can push inland or away from land, so it does influence whether or not there's any flooding issues at all in that section. There are places in low-lying areas that are scattered around the city that do have flooding issues. You can look back at, even links, news stories from Hurricane Matthew from 2016. There were some spots in Virginia Beach that got really decimated, but it was very, very, very localized. But that being said, most of the rest of Virginia Beach really does not experience too much in regards to flooding. So when you hear people talk about flooding, just know that it's a very localized thing. Now, if you're a local watching this video, comment below if you find any pros and cons that I might have left out in this video, because there are so many people wanting to know what it's like to live in Virginia Beach, and they would love to hear from all of us. Now next, there is no professional sports team here for major sports. First of all, we haven't had major league sports team, for major sports team, since in the 1970s. We had the Virginia Squires. Some people might remember them. They were an ABA basketball team in '76. But of those interested in the Squires, Julius Erving was a team member of the Squires. But anyway, there hasn't been another team comparable in the four major sports since then. We tried to get a baseball team, tried to get a basketball team. There was some rumblings of hockey at one point, but it never really materialized, and I don't see any way we'll ever get an NFL team. Maybe I'm just pessimistic, but it's a tough town to me to expect to bring a four major sports major league team here. We've got some minor league teams, baseball, hockey. The reasons why the team might not come ever is, like, for instance, a lot of transient people because of the military, and the road infrastructure is kind of weird, kind of herky-jerky, and it's hard to me to feel like you could support like a lot of traffic on a regular basis in a large arena. But I could be wrong, and honestly I'd want to be wrong, but it's one thing I would most want to change about the area is getting a four major sports major league team here. And so Virginia Beach City, if you're watching, let's get on that. The number 4 on the restaurant list is Mazari Kebab. This is my favorite Mediterranean restaurant in Virginia Beach, and it's primarily for the heroes. Real good pitas, first of all. They have real good portions, but my favorite part sometimes really is the grape leaves. They have awesome grape leaves. I'll put an address below. That brings us to the housing prices. Another con here. They've gone up, and they were already high, but they've gone up. So before 2020, in December of 2019, the average sales price for a house in Virginia Beach, any house, was $323,354, which was climbing back then, but not super aggressively yet. But this year, since all this stuff happened this year, in December of 2020, the average sales price is now $352,070. Increase of almost $29,000, almost 9% in just 1 year. Lots of reasons for that, but the average appreciation per year is typically somewhere around 3 and 4%. So that gives you an idea. So the world craziness kind of has impacted real estate here, so that has increased the prices. But that being said, there are other things that can make those prices more palatable for people, but we can go into that in other videos. Now, my next one is about the downtown. It's pitiful. If you're looking for a city that has like a real good skyline, you know, like picturesque, like you can put the skyline on the wall, everything within walking distance, this is not the place. You have not found your place. But as of 2020, the city of Virginia Beach is ranked 44th largest city in the United States. That's by population. Probably bet that it has one of the 2 or 3 smallest downtowns, maybe even the smallest. We didn't open our first building until 2003, which was, it's called the Armada Hoffler Building, but that's like now the staple of Virginia Beach downtown. There are some cool spots in downtown. There's good shopping, there's good performing arts centers and good restaurants, and some grocery stores. I love Wegmans. My favorite grocery store is in downtown Virginia Beach. But honestly, the reality is that there's just not a whole lot of downtown there, period. I mean, if you really look on Google overhead view, you kind of see what I'm talking about. Kind of drive through it in like 45 seconds. So that's to me a bummer. It's just there's not a big downtown. Now, the next 2 cons go kind of hand in hand, and I'll explain why. The next con is that you can't really function well without a car. What I mean is, Bloomberg, they did a study once, 2019, they ranked the top 10 best and worst large metros in the US to live in without a car. They didn't rank Virginia Beach in the 10 worst. I want to explain from a local's perspective why you can use that same list as a reference to compare what those cities are like and why it's similar here in Virginia Beach. So, the 5 worst are Birmingham, Nashville, Raleigh, Oklahoma City, and Kansas City. Now there's a common theme there in that many of those, they're spread out all across a larger area, and that's what Virginia Beach is. It's got almost 500,000 people, but the road system is so sprawled out across such a large land area. The roads are confusing, they're not really built for a ton of traffic, you know, and also the public transportation system is really sluggish and it's not very expansive. You can't really get to too many places using that system. So in recent time, like especially 2020, traffic has gotten better, I would say though. The city has upgraded some intersections. They desperately needed new traffic patterns in some of those places. They changed some interstate spots. They expanded some lanes. So it's reduced the traffic, but that still does not mean it's enjoyable. Now, those are some of the big cons of living in the area, but I'm going to throw in some mini cons that I think are annoying too, just real quick, rapid fire. One thing, tons of pine trees, which leads to tons of pine needles. What that also means is the grass is often hard to grow here if you have those pine needles because it just covers the grass. Super annoying. Also, quick weather changes. They happen all the time. You could get up and it's like 72 degrees and then a storm blows through and it's in the 40s. No real super luxury car dealerships, if that matters. Like the closest Tesla is Washington, D.C. No Lambos, like no Ferraris, Rolls Royce dealerships, concerts, talent, you know, like comedians, bands that come to the area. The biggest headliners don't always come here. Sometimes they do, but sometimes you may have to drive to DC to get your favorite shows or to see your favorite bands. Now, it's not always the case. This is a great area for music, but it's just not that upper echelon. Now, number 3 of my favorite restaurants is the CARIB Shack. I've talked about this one several times. It's a Caribbean restaurant. It's been featured on Guy Fieri's drive-ins, diners, and dives, and it's real tiny, but it's some of the best cooked meat, oh my gosh, I've had in the area. It's a real cool change of pace. Like it's worth it if you like different ethnicities, which my wife and I love different ethnic foods. Now, for the pros of living in Virginia Beach, now there's a bunch to choose from. The first is that you'll love the outdoors. If you love the outdoors, you are in luck. Take your pick which spot. First Landing State Park, the northeast corner of the city. It's where the settlers landed in 1607, and a state park now. They basically curated a park around that landing spot. Good for hiking, good for biking, running, beach access. And then there are also, for beach, there are 6 primary beach spots in Virginia Beach, all along the north and the eastern shores. You got Chicks Beach, First Landing, that state park that has a beach. The north end, there's a great little quiet area. Hitting that like button for the algorithm. The ocean front, and then the south of the ocean front is Croatan and Sandbridge. I've done videos about a lot of these places too, so you can kind of get a whole idea. Then on top of that, you've got country. Pungo is amazing. That's a bunch of protected wildlife down there. You can go hiking, woods, you can go farmland down there, and then not to mention on top of that, over 200 publicly funded parks in the city of Virginia Beach. Sadly, I don't do much hiking, and I don't really like the beach, so I can't really take the most advantage of the most desirable parts of Virginia Beach. The next pro is that there are lots of different living options. So what I mean by that is if you want country, you want urban, you want beach, suburbia, a mixture, whatever. You've got plenty of options in Virginia Beach. One of the reasons is because the city is so old. So Princess Anne County started in the late 1600s, and that's what Virginia Beach is now, but it became a city in 1952. But in between all of that, and especially in the mid-1900s, there were tons of houses built in all kinds of different styles, and a lot of them are older. You'll see like 100-year-old houses. You'll see some in the 60s, and like brick ranch, 2-story. You'll have a bunch of them in like the 80s, 90s, and then you'll see lots of new construction too, especially on the southern part, you know. And downtown, there's still, even though the downtown's tiny, you've got flats and apartments in there too. So you have a sprinkling of every type of living in Virginia Beach, which adds to the variety, which is part of why I like Virginia Beach, because it's got so much variety. In 2020 and beyond, there's a lot of new construction still being built around in the area, especially in the south, like I mentioned, where a lot more of the undeveloped land still is. Now, number 2 on my top restaurants is El Pico de Oro. Oh yes, I've talked about this restaurant a few times too. It's my favorite chicken place in Virginia Beach, if you can't tell. But I've mentioned my wife and I love ethnic food. This is the best chicken I've ever had, and their fried plantains are awesome, and we get that combo with their chicken. It's really good. Now the next pro is the safety ratings. So there's a lot of statistics that all speak to the overall safety of Virginia Beach. So Wallet Hub. I mentioned them before. They rank the safest cities, and in 2021, they ranked Virginia Beach as the number 8 safest city in the country, though none of the cities ranked above it were even close to the same size, a lot smaller. So another site had Virginia Beach as number 4 safest large city in the country, and it was the only city on the East Coast in the top 10. Another site called Macro Trends showed the trend of violent crime over the course of years past, and in 2018, Virginia Beach had 117 violent crimes for every 100,000 people, which is the lowest the site had on record, and is 42% lower than the overall state of Virginia in the same year. And it's 69% lower than the country's average. So that's a lot of numbers to say that when you move to Virginia Beach, you can expect to have a pretty relaxing time in most areas. And I'll drop all links below for the stats so you can find more out about the safety ratings in Virginia Beach. Now, on that same note, Virginia Beach is really known for having top-notch schools in the state of Virginia. So the state of Virginia actually fully accredited Virginia Beach's entire public school division, which is awesome. And also the high schools have a very unique and specific academy program. They have academy programs for students who want to specialize in fields of study like technology or business, law, performing arts. But people who do move to Virginia Beach often target the city because of the high caliber public schools. So 2 of the schools, actually, Ocean Lakes and Princess Anne, are ranked in the top 10 of schools in the state according to Niche.com. So it's been the standard for quite a few years, and I really don't expect it to change too much. Niche.com, the same website, ranked the entire school district 9th out of 132 total districts in the state, which is the 93rd percentile in Virginia. Awesome. Now, another pro to being in this area is the fact that there are so many military bases all around the area, not just in Virginia Beach, but other cities nearby. What this does is it really helps boost the economy here, especially with housing. So people that are coming in and out all the time for military, the government is guaranteeing their salaries, and so it does definitely support the values of property as well as just the overall economy because there are so many people here in the military. Another big pro is the fishing and the seafood. Specify seafood because there's so much freshly caught in Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean off the shore. So like flounder, croaker, mackerel, whiting, trout, bass, it's a ton of them. And so you can fish off the coast, but there are also lakes in Virginia Beach that have good fishing, like Lake Smith, Stumpy Lake, Munden Point Park, all across Virginia Beach, and there's a bunch of other ones too. But that means the seafood restaurants around here are good too. So some good ones are Waterman's, Rockefeller's, Blue Seafood I've never been to, but I've heard is outstanding, and Bubba's, but there's a ton of them. This area is known for its seafood. So now here are some mini pros that also add to the appeal of Virginia Beach. I'll throw at you rapid fire too. So 1, the city is really close to other larger cities. So for instance, Washington DC is 3 hours to the north, Raleigh, North Carolina, 3 hours to the south. Richmond, the state capital, is less than 2 hours north, and then the Outer Banks of North Carolina is about 2 hours south. And so you're 4 to 5 hours away from the mountains, and so you can do a day trip to any of these places and really enjoy it. So you're not too far away from a lot of other types of living and quick traveling. And then next, traffic has been really horrible recently, but the city has done a lot to change that. I mentioned this earlier. Intersections and interstates, some of the ones that have the worst backups, they've been expanded. They've increased the amount of lanes in some places. They've changed the configurations in other places. So it's made it easier going through the area. There's a lot less traffic in some places, so it's made me feel a whole lot better about driving in the area. Still some work in progress, but it's getting there. Another one is that the land area is pretty well protected from the worst of most tropical weather systems. So the area, if you look on the map, it's situated on the southeastern corner of Virginia, but it's also bordered on the south by North Carolina, which is a really big state. You see that, and then South Carolina below that. So because tropical systems typically come from to us from that south and southeast area, it's somewhat common for us to have tropical systems come every year or two, but by the time they get to us, the storm has covered lots of land and it's weakened the storm. So it's made it a lot less severe than what you might expect to see, you may have seen it on the news. Oftentimes, a tropical system might get to us, but by the time it gets to us, it'll be just a bunch of rain and some strong, but not necessarily really, really bad winds. There have been some bad storms, but again, relatively speaking, there just aren't as many as it might seem like there could be for being on the coast. Now, the number one restaurant in Virginia Beach is probably the smallest one, but oh my gosh, I just had it a couple days ago. I'll have it again tomorrow probably. Dave's Barbecue. I heard a lot about this place for a while, but I had never gone in. I just kind of didn't think too much about it. First time I went in there, it changed my life. Brisket sandwich, like it was too big. It couldn't fit in my mouth. The meat just fell off the knife when I saw them cut it to put it in my sandwich. Unbelievable barbecue. You can get pork there, you can get the brisket, other stuff they make too. Love it. It will change your life. Make a point to go there if you come, just even to visit. I help people relocate into the Virginia Beach area all the time. So anywhere from Virginia Beach, Chesapeake up to Williamsburg, and all the areas in between. So if you're planning ever on living or moving into the Virginia Beach area, please contact me at any time. I will put my contact information in the description. You can also subscribe for more videos. I've got so much information. Each video is just loaded with stuff. And I will, of course, see you on the next video.